So let's appreciate this disadvantaged population, okay? And one of the reasons why I use these beans is because it helps me understand or helps me to explain the racialization process. I just don't like canned green beans. And these beans, I love these beans, but I don't like canned green beans. And I'm using that as a means by which to help us appreciate the experiences. Now, what about these beans? I mean, I don't know of any bean that doesn't want to be a part of a community. So when we take a look at a disadvantaged community, when we take a look at the disadvantaged beans versus these beans, okay, well, they have to face a four-part process of inequity. So when we talk about racism, when we talk about discrimination, when we talk about the experiences that beings go through, it's not an easy process to explain, okay? That's why a lot of people misunderstand the experiences that people who are in a disadvantaged position face in society. And it is very complex and complicated, especially for those who are experiencing the disadvantaged position, because this four-part process is not easy, one, to understand, because even those who have experienced the discrimination and the segregation, even those who have experienced that discrimination and segregation can't understand it either. But this four-part process is very important, okay? First is in this process is social racial discrimination. They have to face social discrimination simply because in the public arena they are not liked. They are discriminated against. They're segregated. And most importantly, the racial discrimination. So you have to understand that the community that's facing the disadvantaged experience, they internalize it. They internalize the experience, and of course they become disillusioned, okay? And this disillusionment is very important because the odds are against the targeted population, okay? When we take a look at that experience, the racialization process, we need to understand that acute disillusionment robs life of its meaning. And so what happens is this acute disillusionment is tied to the social racial discrimination. But on top of this, let's say that these beans, in order for these beans to compete on the market, and they're always competing on the market, well, they need access to education. And the idea, of course, is they need to go to culinary school so that they become more flavorable. And in this way, they can compete against each other for better positions on the market. So they need access to education, okay? And they're competing against each other to get into the best schools. All of these beans are. There's only so many places in every school, and everybody has to get in, especially in the best schools. So everybody's competing against each other. So you need to have access to education by which to improve your lot in society. Well, what happens in the disadvantaged position is that you don't have access to education. At least you don't have access to the same kind of education as those who are in an advantaged position. So the second part of the process is that you face educational deprivation. And educational deprivation means that you're not going to have access to the best quality education by which to improve your lot in society, simply because the laws are against you. The laws have been written to keep you in a disadvantaged position. After all, you're being discriminated against. You are segregated. So that community, again, not only having to face social racial discrimination, now they go to an educational process that does not serve their interests. That's just that. And so, of course, if you're not getting access to that education and you're not becoming flavorable, then by the time that you go onto the market to sell yourself for a wage, you're not going to be getting the same wages as these people. So the third part of the process is not only social racial discrimination, that's the first one, educational deprivation. The third one is what economists and sociologists call economic marginality. Now, economic marginality is also a historical term that helps us appreciate something about the experience. facing economic marginality is basically what you face in terms of what is known as a dual wage structure. One wage for those who are in a privileged position, another wage for the disadvantaged. And so, again, the idea in terms of economic marginality is that it's a dual wage system, is that you're living in the margins of society. You're not making enough money by which to survive so as to be competitive on the market with all of these other flavorable beans. See, these beans, they have the advantage. These beans don't have the advantage. And it's very difficult, again, to understand the disadvantaged position, because even those who are in a disadvantaged position, they don't know what's going on. They can't explain that. They can't explain they understand the social racial discrimination, but they don't see it, that it's tied to the fact that their education has been deprived, the fact that they are also experiencing a dual wage system. And then the fourth process, the fourth part, and this is the most controversial, is of course the laws are against them. So how can they participate in society if the laws are against them? So they need to have access to the political process, because it's in the political process that the laws are being passed to discriminate against them. So they need access, they need to be enfranchised. And what happens in this community is that they are politically disenfranchised. So the fourth part of the process is political disfranchisement or disenfranchisement. In fact, it's called the right to vote. They endure political disfranchisement, the opportunity to influence the political making process that impacts their life. Well, they don't have it. They don't have access to the political process. They don't have access to the political process where they can at least get a representative for their community elected, so that that representative can kind of influence the decision-making process to stop the laws that are discriminated against them. So it's very important to understand this four-part process. And students, you're going to be having to, with regards to the exercises, you need to appreciate all of these experiences. The four-part process, the racialization process, is very important. When you're in a disadvantaged position, that four-part process becomes important. There's the four-part process: political social racial discrimination, political disfranchisement, educational deprivation, economic marginality. So please, students, get to remember this. This is going to be so important throughout this course, especially as we're going to be dealing with all of the different experiences of the different immigrant populations.